I had done something really foolish. I'd gone hiking in the woods alone, and even worse, I'd gotten lost. The darkness was beginning to take control, and I had just reconciled myself, reluctantly, to a night sleeping under the stars, when I noticed a dark bulk amongst the trees, an old cabin or shack. In truth, it was more of a shack. The door was unlocked, so I slowly pushed it open, softly calling, "Hello? Hello? Is there anyone there?" No answer. So I struck a safety match and illuminated a shambles. The inside of the cabin looked like the scene of a massacre, or at least an enormous brawl. The rough wooden furniture lay overturned and splintered, everything sprinkled with shards of broken glass. Everything except for a battered desk propped against a far wall. Atop this desk, the partial remains of an old black candle jutted from the mouth of an old whiskey bottle. I lit it and made a quick examination of my new surroundings. I found myself thinking, what went on in here? And what were those brown stains on the crude wooden floorboards? Dried blood? The top of the desk had been split in half by an axe, which was still buried in its surface. I pulled it out and checked the blade, which was also stained dark brown. Blood? Blood! I sat down in the room's one functional chair, which stood before the ruined desk, and I weighed my options. Outside, it was pitch black. I was lost, and there was no chance of my finding my way in the Stygian darkness. So my only realistic option was to stay put. I didn't have anything to eat, but I had half a canteen of warm, tepid water. I was out of cigarettes, and my phone had no coverage, but at least I had the matches. I was worn out. Physically, and emotionally. So I decided to blow out my candle in order to conserve it. Then I lay my weary head down on the broken desk. And soon I was sound asleep. Asleep. And in my sleep, I saw or perceived the deep cut in the lid of the desk illuminated by a strange spectral light which threw everything into unearthly relief and which magnified the deep cut until the gash in the desk looked like a huge cleft or chasm in the side of a mountain. Something was coming down the valley of the chasm, something that crawled along its base on at least 8 pairs of legs. It looked like a demonic turtle, its back covered by a rough, craggy carapace or shell, from which jutted an ugly death's head with a skull face and a pair of enormous yellow glowing eyes. It darted a tongue towards me, a tongue that was black, sinuous, and forked. I instinctively drew back, and as I did, I saw yet another strange and ugly creature, poised on the edge of the fissure above the first, monstrosity. This second cryptid made me think of an armadillo, but it stood upright on 2 clawed feet, while a fang or tusk protruded from the side of its thin mouth. It moved in an incredibly stealthy and sinister manner, and it was obvious it was about to jump down and attack. All this was already insane enough, but then a third mysterious entity stood just outside the mouth of the chasm. At first, it looked like a brown, hairy, or fur-covered sack sitting atop a pair of thin, black feet. But then it turned slightly towards me, and I was able to gaze within the top of the sack. I mean, the body. And I saw a pinkish maw with rows of sharp white teeth, like the mouth of a lamprey eel. Collectively, this horrid trio had a comical aspect. They were laughable, ludicrous, and yet still they filled me with icy terror, with an overwhelming urge to jump up and flee the cabin. But I found I was frozen to the spot. I must be dreaming, I said to myself. I must be dreaming. But that didn't mean I could wake up. And at that precise moment, the armadillo creature leapt to the attack. At the very instant, the demonic turtle darted forward and bit into the hairy thing. I don't know if the hairy thing shrieked or howled out, but it began to writhe as a jet of black stuff, blood maybe, spurted from its crumpled body to pool at its dark feet. And then I woke up. I woke up to pitch darkness. My candle had gone out. I fumbled for my matches while thinking, man, what a wild dream. When I heard a shuffling noise from somewhere behind me, I struck a match and leapt out of my chair, knocking it to the floor as my match went out, but not before I had seen, looming over me, a huge being that looked like a brown, hairy, or fur-covered sack sitting atop a pair of thin, black feet. It was leaning towards me, with its mouth towards me, a vast, oozing, gaping, pinkish maw with rows of sharp white teeth, like the mouth of a lamprey eel. Without thinking, I crashed out of the cabin and out into the darkened woods, eventually stopping to lean gasping against a tree. I was still lost and no longer had either my canteen or my phone. But at least I was safe. And I still had my matches. But there was something standing near me in the total blackness. I knew it. I was sure I could hear it breathing, ever so gently. I had to know. Well, I still had my matches, so I struck one. And in the flare of the match, I saw a massive creature looming over me. It had claws for fingers, pointed ears, a long canine snout, gleaming fanged teeth, and two glowing red eyes. It was a werewolf. And then my match went out. The moral of the story: it can always get worse. If this is your first visit to my channel, please consider subscribing. My name is Warren, and I write and tell original ghost stories and original horror stories featuring such cryptids as the Night Floaters, Werewolves, and the Black-Eyed Children. So again, please consider subscribing. Please help me to reach my goal of 2,500 subs in 2022. Till midnight. Cheers. Pictures used in today's video, courtesy of Pixhere, that's PX here, while the music was the hypnotic Ghost Story by that patron of the internet, Kevin MacLeod. Thank you for listening.